I wanted to talk to you about how I try to close my windows, not the windows on my browser, but real, actual windows with home automation. The thing is, I live in Berlin, so I have a rental flat, and you can't do big changes on rental flats. And most of the stuff I've seen that are based around smart homes are either new buildings or flats or apartments that are bought and where you open the walls and do really fancy stuff with that. I couldn't do that with my flat, so I just started small, and I will tell you how I started and where I had my issues and what I achieved until now. So it's still an in-progress project for me. My name is Martin. At day, I work for a company called Idealo, and I build Angular tools to help my colleagues to import 2 billion offers a day. I'm also a meetup organizer. I organized the Angular Berlin meetup, and I started organizing a JavaScript and AI meetup in Berlin with a friend of mine. And for that reason, I love Angular, I love math. That's probably the reason I studied math, and I love cats. So this is my cat, and his name is luckily also my Twitter handle. So if you have any questions afterwards, just DM me. My DM is open, or tweet me, and we can have a chat about JavaScript, about special frameworks, or about IoT. My problem. I have to use one of those. I didn't want to make an advertisement for one of them, so I just used a generic SVG. I have asthma, so once in a while I have problems breathing. And those problems mostly occur because the air is too wet, the air is too dry, it's too hot, it's too cold. I'm a little bit of a, well, picky person when it comes to that. So my goal was to have something like this. I talked to my landlord. She didn't want to build me a river inside my flat. But places like that are really perfect for me. I mean, I have a little bit of humidity, I have a perfect temperature. It's perfect for me. I love that. And I would love to have exactly that place in Berlin. But I won't get that. So let's put it more into numbers. Good air condition for me, and probably for most people out there, are a relative humidity of 40 to 60%. Be aware if you have too humid air, it starts to fungus and stuff can start spreading in your flat, so you don't want to get over 60%. This is the word relative humidity for everyone who's not a native English speaker. It means the amount of water in the air. And also temperature. I like warm rooms, so for me 20 degrees Celsius would be a perfect temperature in my rooms. How could I achieve that goal? Well, as I just said, I'm not able to open my walls or introduce an air condition in my flat, because air conditioning in Germany isn't really a thing. So you can't persuade your landlord, like in other countries, to give you air conditioning. So you have to think, how can I control the climate inside my flat? The first thing is your windows. If you have windows, you can open them. Everybody learned that from their parents. Open your windows, please, because it stinks in your room. I heard it when I was younger. And then the question is, what is the best time to open your window? Based on the climate outside and based on the climate inside your flat. And how long should I open my window? There are a lot of theories about that. I mean, my mom said, you should open your windows at least 30 minutes a day. there were different opinions with my grandma and so on and so forth. So there's really a lot of opinions about how long to open the window, but you can exactly calculate how long you should open your window. The second thing I can control is the heat. I have just regular radiator heaters in my home, like almost every German flat has, and I think almost every Austrian flat has that. So you can turn them on and off in the winter. You can pull them to the max, or you can just irritate them to a specific number. But the question also is, when should I turn the heater on? And how long should I heat? Because it doesn't make sense to heat on max for 10 hours, or does it make more sense to heat on the minimum level for the entire day? So, what do I need to answer this question? The first thing, we just talked about that, the humidity. You need to know how much water is in the air inside a room. For example, this changes over time, not only by the climate that is outside, not only because it's raining outside, but how many people are in your room. I mean, that's full, 600 people, oh my God. I didn't realize that, I'm getting nervous. So 600 people, they sweat, they breathe, and your breath has also water in it. So you raise the humidity of the room, of the air in your room. If you're not in your flat, there is nothing that raises the humidity of your room, except maybe your plants or your pet. But my pet is always sleeping, so I don't know if he does anything. The second thing that is in physics really related to humidity is the temperature. So you also have to know how warm is it in your room. And if you have a large room like this one, maybe here is a different temperature than just over there in the opposite corner. And that means you should have at least 2 sensors, maybe 4, maybe 5. How many sensors are good? You have to play around with that in a normal room, like, I don't know, 10 to 15 square meters. It's totally fine to have 1 sensor, maybe 2. And then you have to do a little bit of math. I studied math, I like those. Those are the formulas you need to know if you want to calculate the relative humidity in a room. So just like math, explain the weird signs. This is the humidity. So this is the humidity that is in the room. It is the water vapor mass in grams divided by the room volume. So if you want to make sense out of your data, you have to know how big your rooms are. So this is the time where you should get out your measurement tape and go to your room and go like, okay, these are 2 meters, these are 4 meters. I think my landlord gave me a different size of my room that I actually have. That's a problem. No, you need the volume of your room. And then you can calculate the relative humidity. This thing here is called phi, and it has a lot of different meanings, even in physics. So in this case, it's the relative humidity. This is really important. This is what we want. And it's just the humidity that is actually in your air divided by the possible maximum humidity, and that is based on temperature. I tried to find this graph with English axis, but I didn't find it. So this is temperature, and this is the amount of water per cubic meter. And I had to do a real big JavaScript map with all those data from 0 to 30, and just added like, okay, 5 gram per cubic meter is the maximum that is possible, and for example, another column in my map would be 20 degrees, because I really like the 20 degrees. 60% is between 10 and 11 gram And with that, I have all I need to do the math that is needed behind calculating the relative humidity. So because, let's think about it again, I want to have between 40 and 60% humidity in my room. So how do we get the data? My first approach was, like always, go to Arduino. They are really awesome because there are a lot of tutorials, a lot of sensors. If you, like me, I'm just a hobby person when it comes to home automation, so I'm always going first to Arduino and look at all the tutorials if I find something that helps me to understand how the sensors work. And luckily, in this case, I also found something. Second thing is you need to know how your, what are your sensors and how many sensors do you need. So on the right side, you see a standard humidity and temperature sensor you can buy for 20 euros on Amazon or so. On the right side, no, on the left side, I'm sorry. On the left side, you see the actual sensor, and it does exactly the same thing. It gives you the number of the relative humidity and the temperature. So if you add those two with an Arduino board, you get something I wanted to show you. It wasn't my window that was sacked by security. It was an Arduino board and a humidity sensor with a lot of wires. It looked a little bit like this. I was perfectly flying from Berlin to Cluj with that. They did not have any problem with me having that in my cabin luggage. They had problem in Cluj where I wanted to fly to Vienna, and they told me, well, there are weird wires, microcontrollers. They didn't use the word microcontrollers, but what does it do? And I tried to tell them. I tried to show them the demo I wanted to show right now. And they looked at me and, no, you're not taking that with you on the flights. But I need it, and no, you're not. You can go back to Cluj. It was 4 a.m. in the morning, and send it to Vienna by post. And I thought, okay, that won't happen. So at this time, I'm not showing you how I did that, but I will. But I will show you what I used. I used this. Wait, here. I used just a page by Instructables where they explained to me exactly what I need. That was my first go-to. I wanted to. That's the reason I used Arduino at the beginning, because they really explain you. Okay, you need this. You need a DHT11 hygrometer, that's the official word for that. And you plug them together like this and stuff like that. So really, Arduino is the best thing you could do when it comes to starting with your microcontrollers. So yeah, I got the data. Awesome. But the question is, why did I use Arduino? Because I said I used JavaScript. Well, the thing is, there are many tutorials. I tried to work it out with a Raspberry Pi. It worked. You can do the entire stuff by collecting the data with a Raspberry Pi. But Raspberry Pis are a little bit more expensive, and as I just said a little bit earlier, you need maybe more than one sensor to get enough information. So yes, you have this awesome app. If you know of any good solution that uses a microcontroller that uses JavaScript, just give them to me. Post them to me on Twitter, or just come to me later and tell them to me. The last thing I looked at that was really promising to me. Was on Kickstarter a microcontroller from Neonios, and it looks like it's a microcontroller entirely based on JavaScript. I am really looking forward to implement this as the go-to solution for my sensors. When I talk about my sensors, I have to talk about the limitations also. So The limitations for the humidity sensors, you have to have them in mind when you are understanding when you want to understand the data you get. The sensor I used has a range from 20% to 80%, and it has an accuracy of 5%. So you have to keep in mind that your data, that you have to arrange your data, like you have to take the median every minute or so, or the average every minute, whatever you feel lucky with, so you get a good data. The same goes for the temperature. I'm quite happy that I won't have -degrees in my living room, so I'm fine with the 0 to 50 degrees, and I hope I won't get over 50 degrees anytime soon, climate change. And I'm also fine with the 2% accuracy. Also here, I just take the data every so often, and I just average them. I take the median for them. With that, also a limitation. The sensors I use, they are only able to give you data every second. There are sensors that can give you more information sooner and more often, but they're more expensive. And for me, that's also fine because I realized I just want to think in minutes or in hours. So what do we do with data? This is where thermodynamics comes into place. This is physics again. I'm just kidding. I don't do more Greek letters. I won't show you how that is implemented because that's really just a bunch of formulas that I implemented in JavaScript. And that is not really important right now. What I want to give to you as an advice, be aware that you have to focus on a certain domain. For example, if you're doing something with, what did I see before, the blindings of your window, if you want to do something with that, be aware that they have a weight and your motors have to be able to lift that weight. And think about your, really think about your model that you have, because that's important. So I connected the sensors to the server, and I had to decide if I wanted to push the data from the sensor to the server, or I want to pull the data from the sensors by the server. I decided to do push, because pushing the data gives me the possibility that the server doesn't have to know how much sensors it has. It doesn't have to know what the frequency of the data is. It just have to listen to, does anyone give me information or not? So I could make it independent, and I just had to implement one endpoint. I used for that a standard Express server, and the server just kept the numbers it got from the sensors in memory, and created an average of that, and every so often it calculated a recommendation for me. So with this, I am it's easy to add more sensors by just adding more sensors in your flat and giving the server the information what those sensors are all about. I want to also make you aware that you have more information than just the sensors you're currently working with. You also have sensors from, maybe if you have more IoT, you may have a sensor that tells you that you're actually not at home, or you have external sources. For example, in my special case, I thought about, do I have to add a sensor on the outside of my home or not? I did not because, again, my landlord. But I realized there's a weather API, and I use this weather API to collect the data and calculate the recommendation. Last thing I had to do, I'm still in progress. I added a UI that tells me what to do. I just added, as it is an Express server, I just added a simple graphic user interface where I could change the data of my living rooms or my rooms, And at the bottom, it just gave me an information on what I should do. So what's next? As said, I want to replace my Arduino sensors with other sensors that are cheaper and other microcontrollers that are cheaper to have more data. And I want to go and make stuff like really the heater automatically. I did that already a few years ago, and this is a controller for a radiator heater that is accessible via Wi-Fi. And I had a really big problem with that. I did that 2 years ago in the winter, and I thought I had figured out everything. My server was calculating the data and said, okay, it's like this temperature, heat, go and heat, go and heat. And I didn't take into account that most of the day I'm not at home, but my model didn't know that, my server didn't know that, so it heated all day long. Was about 200 plus on the heating bill. So this is, please be aware, you playing with IoT, you can break stuff, it can cost money. Also, because I saw the keyless opening of doors, you can do that. That's not that big of a problem. I just tried it before. And the problem is security. I'm currently relying just on the security of my Wi-Fi because I use Wi-Fi. I did not do any more stuff to do the security. But if you're doing something like keyless opening of doors, please be aware to make sure that you're really, really the right user to have the access to do that. So just keep that in mind. More ideas. This is where I want to encourage you to take my story as a hint on how I did it and do your own stuff with IoT to make your home a little bit smarter. Like the question, I'm not at home. Is my coffee machine on? I have that problem from time to time where I realize, did I leave on the oven or not? So I want to encourage you to find ideas and solutions to solve problems like this in a regular flat. Or when I'm traveling, I want to make sure that my Alexa or Google Assistant is off, because if they're not off, it can happen that they start playing because the neighbor also has one and he told you to play the music loud and yours doesn't respond after that anymore. And then fire department has to come and open your door, and that's getting expensive. So, for example, that would be an awesome idea. For me, one of the next goals I have is to use the inputs and outputs of what I built of the server to connect to an Alexa skill. Last, what's your idea? If you have any ideas, come to me. I would really love to listen to them. I would really love to work out with you what you can do. I would really want to see it, and maybe we can have more of them in the QA. Thank you. Das Ding ist ausgegangen.
Oh, yep. So, aha.
Wie viel haben wir noch?
So, wir haben eigentlich für die Stunde. So, questions. My app was restarting there for a second. Where's the best place to shop for parts and sensors to build this stuff?
Well, I have an electronic shop just a few hundred meters next to my flat, and I really like to go there because they can help me when I have problems, when I misunderstand how things are working together. So my advice is, if you're really sure what you want to do, go and shop them online. If you're not really sure what you do, go and find a shop that is next to you where you can talk to people.
All right, the question on everyone's mind, Angular, Vue, React.
That's a trick question, right? use whatever you can program and use whatever fits your problem the best.
That was very political of you.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have any horror stories about someone hacking you?
I do not. That's what I just said. I just rely on my Wi-Fi, and I'm fine with if someone understands that it's 20 degrees in my room. But I'm currently really trying to not do stuff that is like opening the door keyless, because I'm really afraid of what can do, and I have no stories about that.
Okay, all right. The biggest horror for me would be if my Alexa beer skill was taken over by somebody else and they drank it all first, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do deployments?
I collect all the sensors and update them whenever I do something new. So that is not the best solution. That would be a good topic for the future, how to deploy new code on the sensors.
All right, so the next version of your talk.
Maybe.
Do you know the Python-based Home Assistant?
I've read about it. I would love to play around with that, because I feel like this is still a really close topic with Alexa and Google Assistant. I did not have the time to do it.
All right. And, how do your sensors communicate with the server?
Arduino Wi-Fi, the answer is yes.
Yes.
I have a shield on my Arduino board that communicates with my Wi-Fi system, with my Wi-Fi connection.
So, and what's your view on using this 7-character string versus Arduino?
I'm not an expert in that, so I have no clue.
All right.
I can't give you an answer to that.
Does somebody in the room have a strong opinion about it? Who wrote the question? You have a strong opinion about it?
Yeah, I'm the one who wrote the question.
Hold on. We have time, right?
Hello? Here?
Oh, I don't have a mic here.
Here?
Perfect. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Hi, I'm the one who wrote the question. Like you, I had similar issues to solve, and I was looking for an Arduino Wi-Fi shield, and I found this ESP8266 microcontroller that has one built inside. So my suggestion to you would be to try using this one, or at least take it into account for making these sensors, because it's much easier for you to communicate with them. They have Node.js support. They have a thing called Arduino that's flashable. Yeah,
Can someone make a screenshot of that and send it to me through Twitter, because I have it on my phone. Because thank you. That's really interesting. Because I'm currently working with. I'm still looking for good solutions for JavaScript support.
All right. Have you thought about developing your own sensors?
I do not, because I'm really bad at physics. Even if I studied math, I'm really afraid of doing that, because I think that's a different approach. That's a different level.
Right. And do you plan to replace your Arduino?
Yes. In fact, I'm waiting for the Neonios pre-release to happen soonish, and I want to play around with that one. Because it's smaller, it has the Wi-Fi included, and it would make my world a little bit easier, and it uses JavaScript. So
cool.
I'm looking for Neonios to replace the Arduino and do more JavaScript.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.